Okay. So the presentation is visible now?
Yes, yes, Prabhu.
Okay. Okay. I'm sorry. I'm sorry for the delay, and we'll start now immediately without any further delay. So today we are going to discuss about self-management. And before,
sir,
sorry,
video is off. Video off.
video.
Is off. Yeah.
Okay, video is off. Video. No, along with sharing only, you can put the video also on.
Your video is visible. I can see background is green.
Right. Yes, thank you. It's visible. You can open the presentation. Okay. So today we are going to discuss about self-management. You see that in this world we have to deal with two things. One is animate objects, another is inanimate objects. And when we are dealing with these different varieties of things in this world, so when we are dealing with inanimate things, that point of time, we do not require much of the things are not involved in that. Why? Because as you want to drive the machine or as you want to control the machine will work that way. You have to simply be trained in that sense. And once you are trained, you can ask the machine or you can completely control how the machine will work. But when it comes to deal with the animate objects, I will not say objects actually, animate persons, the human beings. When you have to deal with the human beings, that point of time, you require to have certain kind of more training and more you to because there are likes and dislikes of the other persons involved when you're dealing with that person, and you to take care of all that, not only of your self emotions, you have to take care of the other person's emotions also. So this is how their self management becomes even more important, because we have to deal with the other person here, not with some inanimate object. So self management, today we are going to understand about how a human being thinks, how he perceives the happiness and distress, how he deals in this world, and how he gets affected, or you can say influenced by the outer world. So all these factors we'll understand, and then we'll get a key, or you can say some solutions will work, we'll discuss on, by which we can be free from the influence of the outside objects, and we can be completely self-controlled, not getting disturbed what is happening in the outside world. So before having any solution, the first thing required is we should know where the problem is. If we do not know the problem, then what we will solve? So first of all required is to know where the problem is. So the self-management will start with a very basic understanding, and gradually when we'll understand these things, you'll build up a better understanding today who we self are, how we are situated in this world, and how we have to deal with the other people in this world. So let me begin with a very simple question. The natural hankering of every living entity in this world, what we actually want in this world. If you ask an individual, okay, what you want to possess in your life, somebody will say power, somebody will say money, somebody will say good name and fame, position and all that. So just I've summarized here, these are the different hankerings of a person in this world. You can summarize them, though the list may still be long, but these are the prominent one where we will find that persons are interested in having, or you can say possessing all these things with them. But in the core of all these things they want is actually happiness. They want to derive the happiness out of all this. Somebody has a definition of happiness in terms of power. He thinks that if I'll be more powerful, I'll be more happy. Somebody thinks that if I'll have knowledge, if I'll be knowledgeable, if I publish more number of papers, or I've done more number of researches, then I'll be more happy. He has his definition in terms of wealth. So various people in the world, they have a different you can say definition of happiness. So this is how this word, the hankering of everyone is to possess something, and the core of that is they want to be happy. Now, if we categorize happiness, some happiness you'll find them in sensual happiness. Suppose a person does not have anything to eat and just barely he is able to arrange food for his 2 times. So for such a person, food is a need. But a person who is easily able to fill up his belly, but he wants some more varieties just to you can say gratify his senses and all, that there it may be said that that is not the need. The next level happiness is trying to have some sensual happiness, because we have 5 senses, knowledge acquiring senses. So each sense has got a sense object. So when we bring together sense and sense object, that is considered to be the sensual happiness. Beyond this sensual happiness, we have our mental happiness. And what is that mental happiness? Because suppose I have got some idea to perform some activity, and if I'm able to do that activity, that is called mental happiness. On the mental platform, we are dealing with that. Then intellectual happiness, you might have seen that when you are doing some research or you are trying to solve some riddle or some questions, then also when the problem is solved, we get kind of intellectual happiness. So this is intellectual happiness. And then egoistic happiness. Egoistic happiness means we all have various identities in this world, and you can say we get proud of, or you can say kind of get happiness from identifying ourselves with that identity. Just like I'm thinking I'm an engineer, I'm a professor, I'm a director. All these egos, they may also give me happiness. So these are the various levels of happiness a person possesses in this world, and we can find them. We can find the people possessing all these varieties of happiness. Now, general understanding of pleasure, what people think of pleasure, what pleasure is. Now, though this discussion which we are going to have today, it can be for both pleasure and distress, but we are going to understand one side, that is pleasure. So in the similar way, we can have distress also. So we'll begin with the general understanding of pleasure. What pleasure is thought of is, if you simply bring a sense and sense object together, that's what is pleasure. But let me say very frankly, that is not the complete pleasure. Behind that, there is so much background work which we have done, and that background work actually emphasize our pleasure, not simply bringing the sense and sense object together. That is not only the way how we get the pleasure. So this is not the complete definition. Let me show you the other factors involved in the pleasure which we get from when we are dealing with any sense object in this world. So first, obviously, it is brought together sense and sense object, but that is very minute. Second is pleasure of whimsical free will, desire, false identity, perception, and hyped hunger and pain to achieve. We'll understand them one by one. First is brought together sense and sense object. Now the sense object may be various, like material objects, some person, some situation, some action. You like to be in some situation, you don't like to be in some situation. You like to perform some actions, whereas not other actions. So this is how we feel pleasure in while interacting with particular sense objects. So the sense object may be some eatables, some music, some scenery, like that. There are so many varieties of sense objects. So this is how we get this sense plus sense object. But I would say this is hardly 10% of your total pleasure which you get from an interaction in this world. What are the other things? This is the main goal, what I'm going to convey through this class today, that we should not be simply become victimized of thinking that this sense object is giving me the sense pleasure. There are so many things behind that, and those things which are behind, they are going to what will be the subject matter for our today's discussion. So the first thing here is pleasure of whimsical free will. Just like something which is even not important also, but if you want to do that, you have decided, no, I want to do that, and if I could do that, that is called pleasure of whimsical free will. Means I wished something and I could do that. That is pleasure of whimsical free will. And if I decided something, but if I am not able to do that, then that will give me the distress. So according to my free will, all of us, we have some free will to act, to think, and like that. So if we are able to exercise our free will completely, जैसा मैं जैसा चाहता हूँ, टीचर ने मेरी वैसी बात मान ली, अदरवाइज जनरली व्हाट आई थिंक इज कि नहीं मैंने ऐसा बोला लेकिन टीचर ने इग्नोर कर दिया, नहीं ऐसा नहीं करना है, सो माय फ्री विल इज गेटिंग सप्रेस्ड, सो आई विल फील काइंड ऑफ डिस्ट्रेस. But if my free will is allowed to be exercised, that point of time my pleasure will increase. So the first factor is pleasure of whimsical free will. Next is the desire. If we have a desire to achieve something, just like if I don't have a desire to be in IIT, if I don't have any desire, and if I simply put up in an IIT college, it will not give me some pleasure like that. I should have a desire for that first of all. Then when I'll achieve it, I'll be happy for it. So similarly, there are desire for possession, lauding our achievements, and for knowledge and for pleasure. We have some desires. So all the desires, if they are there in the background, then only when we will take that sense object, we'll feel happy. Otherwise, we'll not have some value for that sense object. Just like if a person who is not from a background of engineering and all that, he is simply interested in agriculture, something, suppose, and if you give him a very new iPhone or something like that, and he will not be thinking so much, because he is thinking it's not so much important for me. For me, something related to agriculture, if it comes to me, that point in time he'll have more value for that object. But the object which is coming from some other background, which he has no desire at all, he did not desire for that at any time in his life, so why he will be happy for that? So whether we have the desire for the sense object, then that pleasure will increase. So this is another factor. Third factor is false identity. I'm going to speak on this for a long. False identity is what? Just like we are here in the college as a professor, we are here. So being a professor is one identity. Now you're also an engineer, so being an engineer is also one identity. You are living in, or you can say you are belonging to a certain state, so that is also your identity of your residence. So likewise, we have so many varieties of identities, and what happens, we think in terms of these identities only. Just like if I am belonging to Rajasthan, and if I'm too much absorbed into this identity that I am from Rajasthan, completely absorbed in this identity, then what will happen? Whatever happens to Rajasthan state, that will affect me also. If suppose Rajasthan wins a game somewhere or loses a game somewhere, it will affect me also. Why? Because I'm identifying with the state. Similarly, if I am identifying with a particular institute, if I'm identifying with IIIT quota, if I'm identifying, and if something goes wrong or something goes good with the institute, it will affect me also. So if what happiness and distress we want to have from some identity, what we have to do, we have to absorb into that identity. Now the reverse of that is what? If you want to be free from the happiness and distress arising out of some identity, you have to keep yourself aloof from that identity. Now this is an intelligent way how to keep aloof. You may be working as a matter of duty in IIIT quota, but you may not be fully absorbed into that identity also, that you may get disturbed easily by something happens or not. So you have to know what your original identity is. Just like many times people say that there are so many religions, so first comes humanity, religions comes next. So this is how the intellectuals they say. So they're telling that humanity is first. So humanity is the base identity. On top of that, they're telling that there are some religious identities. So the better position for a person to be peaceful in this world would be if he remains in the identity of being a human. Now take another level down. If you say, see, this being human is also one identity. There are some animals also, so they are also there, and below that there is another identity. I would say, based on the scriptures, that we are the spirit soul, and we are this human form of life is also one of the identity we are carrying. And why I'm telling that it is an identity, and why I'm telling that this is false identity. False means that which persists for only a time period. It is not permanent identity. Just like if I say I am from Triple IT Kota, so I'm studying there for 4 years, but after that I'll be passed out from that college. So then I'll be no more a student of that college in that sense. Maybe I'm an alumni then. So this is how my identity of being a student of Triple IT Kota is for 4 years. Similarly, some other professions, like if you're a professor today, maybe if you change your profession to other profession, then your identity as a professor will change to that identity. Similarly, you're belonging to a state, Rajasthan, tomorrow you may get transferred to another state, so your identity will change. And base of all these identities, somebody may say, no, I'm a human, and this identity will always persist. So, or you can say this will always be there, but that will also not be there. Before, if I say, just like for me, if I say before 40 years in my life, where I was not there in this body. So this body was not there. This particular bodily identity was not there with me. And maybe after 50, 60 years or at any time it may happen. So my identity will again lost in the form of this human form. So this is how, when we don't want to get involved in something in this world, when we don't want to get disturbed by the things, or you can say objects here, we have to keep ourselves intelligently aloof. We have to act as a matter of duty, but we have to keep ourselves aloof. Let us not complicate it. Let us take a very simple example. Just like if you are traveling in a train, and while you are traveling in a train, you find that there are so many disturbances in the train. Bathroom is not okay, the co-passengers are not dealing properly, the seats are not proper, and you have started thinking, or you can say you have got so much absorbed. Though you are a resident of a train for 3 hours, suppose your journey is for 3 hours, so you are a resident of the train for 3 hours, and now you got so much absorbed into reviving the train, and in those 3 hours you're completely absorbed in just thinking of train and this that correct this, I'll correct this, and you're taking so much botheration for that. And after 3 hours, when you'll get down from the train, suppose you have an exam for your suppose IIT or something, some exam is there. So if a person gets completely involved in the train and he gets in reviving everything there, he will lose the result outside, because after 3 hours he has to get down and he has to appear for that exam, which is more important for his career at least. So we are not telling that whether we should be concerned for train or not. Yes, that's not the issue here. The main thing is that because he got so much involved in the train, because he got involved into that identity that I'm a resident of this train for so much, he got so much disturbed by the problems in the train. So similarly, while living in this world also, we may have so many identities. I'm a director, I'm a professor, I'm an engineer, I'm this, that, so many identities we have. If we are so much absorbed into those identities, it will affect us a lot. What we have to do, just like I'm a professor also, but base reality, at least we can have this, that I'm a human also. Yes, being a professor is external identity, but being a human is more close identity of mine. So I should not be completely into the identity of being a professor. Just like suppose I'm dealing with a person who is not educated at all. He's completely illiterate. And if I'm dealing with him, I'm a professor, and if I'm dealing with him, if I carry that identity that I'm a professor and I have to deal with that person, I will not be able to deal with him properly, because then I will expect or I may show some lauding over that person. But if I deal with that person as my base identity, which is as a human being, then it will be much comfortable for me to deal with that person. So this is how, if we, it is not that you'll forget your identity of being a professor. Yes, still you are a professor, still you are a director, still you are an engineer, but you are not, you can say, influenced by these identities. You know about your root identity, what you exactly are. You are not influenced by all those other identities. Another thing, so I just want to conclude with this false identity, that these false identities, they play a big role into your pleasure and distress. Just like if you belong to Rajasthan, as I told you earlier, if the Rajasthan wins the game, your pleasure will increase if you're identifying with Rajasthan. If you're not identifying, it will not. But both the situations are not complete. The main situation is, even you are from Rajasthan, you may not be influenced so much by the identity of that I'm a Rajasthan. I'm from Rajasthan. So this is how we can understand this. And the next one is the perception. So various perceptions which we have, based on that also we get influenced for what, how our pleasure will increase or decrease based on the various perceptions, we can say. Next is, again I'll take a time on this, hyped hunger and pain to achieve. Hyped hunger and pain to achieve is what? Just like a person is deprived of something for a long time. जैसे कि एक person था जो कि poor था, and he wanted to have eat some rasgulla, but somehow he could not arrange that much money to purchase some pieces of rasgulla. So from his childhood itself, अगर उसको बताया नहीं जाता कि रसगुल्ला बहुत अच्छा होता है, तो वो हैंकरिंग नहीं होती उसको. But because he has been told like that, the rasgulla is so nice, just by eating you'll feel like bliss. So that person is told like that, and after that you're not giving also. So if you're not giving him rasgulla, even after telling the importance of rasgulla, what will happen? He'll keep on creating hunger. So what will happen? Suppose he's not getting first day, he's going in front of the shop of rasgulla sweets, and then he just watches the rasgulla, he's not able to eat, then he moves on. Again next day also he comes and sees, he's not able to eat that. Like that, suppose 15 years are passed, he did not get any rasgulla from that sweet shop. After 15 years, you become merciful and you go to him and give him some rasgulla. The kind of pleasure that person will have, you can't even imagine. Why is it so? Because it has been hyped so much hunger is there. That's why he's getting that. So suppose every day if you get rasgulla, you'll not feel anything very much important like that. But if you get rasgulla once in a month, you'll feel, so much pleasurable it is. The same rasgulla it is there. How it became more pleasurable? It's only because of the hunger and pain. So anything which may not be even pleasurable can made be pleasurable simply by creating more hunger and pain. I'll narrate a story here. Just like you are there and somebody says to you, देखो तुम्हारे पीछे भूत है, तो आप कहेंगे कि नहीं कोई भूत नहीं है, ऐसा नहीं है, आप मजाक मत करो. सो आप निकल लिए. दूसरा फ्रेंड फिर से आपका फ्रेंड एक आया और उसने भी यही कहा, सी तुम्हारे पीछे घोस्ट है. सो उसने फिर से नहीं ऐसा कुछ नहीं है, तुम मजाक मत करो. सो नेक्स्ट पर्सन फिर से आया, उसने भी सेम चीज कही, सी देयर इज अ घोस्ट बिहाइंड यू. So then you start thinking a little bit, and then 4, 5, suppose 10 of your friends, because they planned like that earlier, so 10 of your friends came and told you the same thing, there is a ghost behind you. Then at the night when you're alone, and you will start believing in the fact that there is I think something should be there. So this is how we get entrapped by these advertisements. So whatever is advertised in this world, well, we think that is more pleasurable. Something which is not pleasurable for, we did not think of it. हमने कभी भी डिजायर नहीं किया उस ऑब्जेक्ट के लिए, पर्टिकुलर मोबाइल के लिए या पर्टिकुलर ड्रेस के लिए, but simply because it was advertised a lot and the hunger was created a lot, we started, I want it, and the moment I get it, oh, I feel, oh, so pleasurable it is. But the fact is, it is not the pleasure in the object. You have hyped into yourself. You yourself have hyped that it is so pleasurable. It was not so pleasurable. It is an ordinary sense object. As I told you, the real pleasure, if it is there, that would be hardly 10%. But because it is hyped, it looks 100% pleasure. So this is how, these are the factors. Now here the first factor, you may say, this is the real factor, but the other 5 are only hyped. They are simply hyped and created in our mind, and we start thinking that the object is very pleasurable. And now the same thing we can think of in terms of distress also. Something which looks so much distressing to our life, we think, oh, it is very distressing. कितना problematic है ये, कैसे होगा ये, क्या होगा? Why we think like that? Because we have created in our mind because of all these factors. Because it is advertised like that. Let me tell you very frankly, in the today's context, see this COVID-19 pandemic, though yes, it is a pandemic and it is, we should be careful, but it has created so much disturbance in our mind simply by watching so much TV. Every TV channel is speaking of that. Every TV channel. And then it became a problem for us. We started thinking, oh, it's very like that, like that. Though, yes, we have to be careful, no doubt about it. But we should not be so hyped in distress. So we should understand these are the factors of hyping our stress. But they are not the real, you can say real, that is not the real stress or pleasure. So this is how, first of all, we should know the root of where from our pleasure and distress are coming. So if you know these roots, then you will not get disturbed by them much. Now, when such pleasure, which is hyped in our mind, when it comes to us, what happens? Initially, it looks like as if it is very big and so much high pleasure it is. But what happens? Down the time, or you can say gradually when the time passes, we start feeling, oh, it's not pleasurable at all. Just like after 20 years, suppose that person was given rasgulla and he was thinking, oh, so pleasurable, so pleasurable. And he start eating it. And then you will see gradually his pleasure graph will go like this. And he will start feeling no more pleasure in that same object. He will, even if you give him every day the same sense object, gradually his graph will come down. Why the graph will come down? Because he is not enjoying the real pleasure. He is enjoying the false pleasure created out of his mind. So that's why it will come down. You get a new phone, first day you will feel so pleasurable because you created a hype in your mind. Oh, new latest technology, this, that. So much advertisement was there on the TV. Like that, so outside hoardings were there. So you bought a new phone, but when you bought the new phone, 1 day, 2 day, 3 day, 5 day, and then 10 days, 1 month, and then the pleasure comes down. So this is how the false pleasure which have been created by these false advertisements, by our hyped hunger or false identities will not sustain for a long. It will come down for sure. Now, how we imbibe these ideas? Now, we have discussed that this is how it happens. We create these false identities and all that. But how does it happen in our life? So I'll take a very simple understanding here, which all of you are very well aware of. But again, just to reiterate what it is. Just like we, spirit soul, we have an intrinsic behavior, general behavior that generally we are humble, kind, and generally a normal human being, you'll find all these normal good qualities. Maybe somebody may have more anger, less humility, but at least it will be there in all the human beings. Human beings, at least they are rational than animals, and they will not behave like animals. If you are training if you tell something to the humans, they'll follow and they will behave properly. So that is the intrinsic behavior of the spirit soul, the human being. And plus that, what happens from his childhood, he grows up in certain society and he reads certain literatures, certain books, he comes in contact with certain friends, certain ideologies, and this is how he gets various understandings, and this becomes part of his faith. And from his childhood, like first year, second year, third, fourth, fifth, Like that, when he goes, he's in a mood of receiving. He receives. His father tells something, he receives. His friends tell something, he receives. His teachers tell something, he receives. Books tell something. Whatever he has read, he'll immediately accept it without a question. So like that, he's receiving. College life, when he comes, till that point he receives. Now college time, and then when he starts getting younger, at that point what happens? Then he starts telling, no, I have received enough. Now I will judge whatever new is coming. I'll judge with the pre-stored information which I have received from my childhood. So this is how, what we do, we judge the knowledge in our young age. You may say suppose 20 to 30 years. In that phase, what happens? Whatever something new comes to us, we will judge that information based on the information we have till today, till, or you can say from our childhood. So from our childhood, whatever we have gained, that is our faith. On that faith, on that big faith, we will judge the new information. That's why you will see that it becomes hard for people to accept something new at the age of maybe 25, 30, and then later ages it becomes completely difficult. Nobody will take a new information generally at the age of 40 or 45, like that. Why? Because it becomes, they've already accepted everything, now they will judge. Everything new comes, they'll judge on the basis of what they have already with them. So that's called the faith. That is their individual's faith. So every one of us, we have some faith based on what society and friends and books we have read. So this is how our faith builds up. Now, based on the faith, whatever stimuli is there, we'll respond according to that. This is, and we've created various identities also. Just like our society has taught us some identities, that you are from this place, you are from belonging to this, you are cultured like this, you have to learn these literatures. So this is how a person carries all those identities above him. He does not remain the original one. He has acquired so many other identities. Now, acquiring so many identities is not a problem. The problem is when that person does not identify himself different from those identities. He starts thinking that I am those identities, and based on his such faith, he starts responding. So if I just ask you, how much percent of our knowledge we acquire by our own research? Because it is very important to understand why I'm bringing here the point of faith is that most of us, we do not research and get the knowledge. We don't research and get the knowledge. We get the knowledge simply by having faith. And what kind of faith we will have is by the one which is nurtured from our childhood. Based on that faith, we'll receive the information. So I would say hardly 2% of our knowledge is our researched work, which we have not, you can say, accepted directly from our experience, not by hearing from some source or by reading someone like that. So hardly 2% of our knowledge would be our experimental knowledge. Other knowledge which we have received is from newspapers, from media. Just take an example. Suppose in the newspaper there is a news that yesterday the Prime Minister has made such a statement. So if I read that in the newspaper, and if I say, no, I don't believe in this news, so what option is there for me to verify that news? Okay, let me go to Delhi and just go and ask Prime Minister himself whether he has made such a statement or not. So is that really possible for me? No. There are so many countries in the world, and all those countries I know of, but I have not visited them. But I have knowledge of all those countries. This is what having faith on that knowledge which I've received from the sources of television, media, like that, we receive the knowledge. We have faith on such objects, and based on that faith, we receive the knowledge. So for knowledge, we are completely dependent on these sources because our senses are limited. We cannot see from here, from our eyes, how Australia looks like. We cannot do that. Our eyes are having a limited, even if we speak of in terms of visible spectrum, that is also very limited. Beyond that, we cannot see. So our senses are limited. We have to rely on some instruments. You have to rely on some other person. You have to rely on some media for the information which you want to have. So this is how our senses are limited. So for that, we have to again depend on these sources only. We don't have time to receive all knowledge by our own. If I have to verify whether the Prime Minister has made such a statement or not, I don't have that much time to verify that, because it will take a long. I cannot verify something which have occurred in the country like Australia. I cannot verify that. I cannot take that much time to verify that. So that much time is not there with me. I may go there and all that. It's not possible. We can't experiment everything, and then we can't stop going also. We have to survive. So if we have to survive, we have to gain the information, utilize that, and go on in our life. So faith is a very important factor. Just like when you enter in the college also, it is not that the very first day you go to the director and say, please give me the degree and then I'll study here. Is that? No, we don't do like that. We have faith based on various information received about the institution, that this is authorized institution, this is authorized by this particular institution, like that. We verify all those facts and then we enter in the college with faith and then study there. Then it gets automatically verified in the later stages. So similarly, when we are moving with all that information received from the newspaper and all that, some points of time in our life, we get to know whether that information was correct or not. Right? At that point of time, we start changing our faith to newspaper A to newspaper B. We say that newspaper A was not giving proper information and newspaper B is more correct. So we start relying on newspaper B. But still, we are actually relying only. We are not getting the knowledge by our experiments always. And some of the examples of the knowledge how we receive from the faith, that is like sitting in the classroom, and we did not measure the strength and everything about the building, just like from the perspective of a civil engineering, and still we are sitting in that building, right? That means what? We are having faith on the system that it will work properly. In a similar way, we every day hear of road accidents, but still we do not stop going on the roads. We still travel, we still use our cars and all that. So having faith on the roads, we are moving, studying in the college, reading newspapers. So these are some of the examples where we put our faith and we go on with that. So shouldn't we gain knowledge this way? Now I have told you that all that what we have received in this world, how we have reconfigured from our childhood, is because of all that sources of information from where we have received this information, and we are actually reconfigured. So should not we gain knowledge in this way? We have to do, as there is no other way. So but what is important? We should not only be dealing with the information which is there in the outside world about our identities. Just like I have an identity of being a professor of IIIT Kota. So this is my identity. So simply if I have knowledge of the college about my identity, that much is not sufficient. Another thing, just like if I have I have an identity of being a resident of Rajasthan, I know about Rajasthan, yes, that's good, but only that much will not suffice. What is more required is, if you actually want to be free from all these identities and you want to have control over these identities rather being controlled by these identities, what we have to do is we have to have the information of the self, the real self, not these identities which have covered our real self. Just like in a crude example, if you take humanity, if somebody say I'm a human being, that is the base identity. Now it is covered by some other identity, that I'm a professor, I'm no more a human. Like that, some people get too much into that identity that I'm only a professor, I'm not a human. So this is how a person gets into these identities. The identity of professor has taken over that person, and he is no more thinking in terms of his identity as a human being. So we have to be we have to go on with these identities. That's not the problem. The problem is when we get controlled by these identities. What we have to is, we have to have the self-realization. We have to know about ourselves then we can control these identities and use these identities as a tool. Just like, take an example. Being angry is not good, obviously. Being angry is not good. And you might have seen some people, when they are angry, they lose control of the self. They do not know who they are. And they forget the relations, they forget the various consequences. They simply get angry. They do not want to check or they do not want to consider all those consequences which may arise because of that anger. So they are actually getting entrapped by the anger. Anger has taken over the person. That person is identifying with the anger, not with his own self. Now, another person also, he is angry, but he is using as a tool. He is using anger as a tool. Let me tell you the example of this. Just like we have a driver, and suppose the driver does not work properly until and unless I scold him. I scold him means I am not from my heart, I do not have any bad feeling for that driver, but simply because I know that if I'll tell him some little bit in a strong tone, he will work. So I may say, hey, तुम टाइम पे नहीं आए, तुम डेली तुम ऐसा क्यों करते हो? So just मैं उसको बताने के लिए ऐसा बोल रहा हूँ. But in the heart, I do not have any bad feeling for that person. That time, what I'm doing is I'm using anger as a tool to do my work. I'm not getting entrapped by anger. And another person who is getting angry at the driver, in a sense, he has lost himself. He is no more aware of his own self. He is simply blasting like anything. That person is a servant of anger, not the controller of anger. So what we have to do is, all these identities we have taken over above us, we have to know all these identities, we should use them as a tool, not to become servant of them. So we can use our identity of being a professor as a tool. We can use our identity of being a director as a tool to handle the students, to handle various professors, to handle the management. All these things we can do as a tool, but we should not get into that identity completely. That's what a human is supposed to, because we are not machine. What machines will do, once you train the machine in a certain way, it will act in that way only. Because machine knows only one way of acting. How you train it, it will act that way. But a human, he can have various identities at a time. He may use those identities to get his work done. Just like as I told you the example of a person who is using anger as a tool to get his work done. In a similar way, as a professor also, you may get your work done from the students. If you think sometimes that scolding is necessary for the child, otherwise he will not learn. So you may scold him, but not with a bad feeling in the heart. You're not becoming the servant of the anger. How you are scolding him? In a way to benefit him. And you know very well, थोड़ा सा बस मेरा टोन मैंने थोड़ा सा टाइट किया है, बट ऐसा एंगर नहीं है उसके ऊपर मेरा. So this is how we can have complete understanding. We can be free from the identities, and simultaneously we can use these identities as a tool, right? So don't become puppet in the hands of false identities. Know your original self and act in that capacity. So we have to know who we self are, and once we know who we self are, then we will not become puppet in all these emotions, anger, all these, when we deal with others, so many things will come to us. At that point of time, we should not become servant of all those emotions. Rather, we should use those emotions as a tool. Now, to gain this self-realization, how to gain this self-realization, this is a very important aspect now. So, to gain self-realization is not a subject matter of maybe technical knowledge or the information which we have in this world outside. So, gaining self-information, or we can say self-realization, is a process of spirituality. And the spirituality makes a person aware of who he self is. And the spirituality works at that level. Just like we have these senses. And above the senses, there is mind. Above mind, there is intelligence. Above intelligence, there is ego. And above that, the position of a spirit soul. That's what Bhagavad Gita mentions. So, when we know about our original self, when we know about the original self, then we can be properly situated in this world, and we can deal with the world properly. And from there only, this spirituality deals with such subject matters only, where it teaches us how to be self-realized. Self-realized means how to be situated in self. You know about yourself always, and not only just knowledge. Knowledge is one aspect, another is practice. When you practice, then you become habituated to act in that way. I mean to say, habituated to act in self-realization. Just like you have self-realization, you have a knowledge. Your knowledge that you are not this, you are not these identities. But what happens when you come in front of students, or when a situation occurs, immediately become angry. You lose control of yourself. You had knowledge, but you could not act properly at the time when it was required. For that requires practice. So spirituality deals with both the things. First is the knowledge of the subject matter. Second is practice. So when we do both the things, then we can completely come up in our original understanding of the self, and we may be free from all the problems. Now, first thing, knowledge. Knowledge about this world, how to deal, how to learn. This all we have to learn from the Creator Himself, the designer of this world itself. So, I'm going a bit in the spiritual aspects. So, I'll explain it from this example here. Just like you might be knowing about encryption and all. So, when you encrypt a message, you cannot read that message. Now, until unless you know the decryption way, how, what is the decryption key, or whatever the method the person who has encrypted it he has used, you can never reach to the message, what the message is. What you will do, you'll put some hit and trial methods, and then you will try to come up with the what is the message actually. So until unless the person who has encrypted it, he tells you that this is the method I used, with this is the key, you can never reach to the message. So this is how this world also, in a similar way, this world also is very complex. This is very big. Just to give an insight of it, Earth is only a dot in the whole universe, and that is the understanding. You can say I've read from the modern scientist actually that the Earth is a dot in the whole universe. So you can just imagine how complex this universe is. And if you want to receive the information about this complex universe, then we have to gain the knowledge from the person who has encrypted it. So it's not that the way how we want to understand this. Yes, we may understand this world according to our limited capacity. Some things we can understand, some laws we can understand of this world, and but we cannot have complete understanding for why this world is created, for why we ourselves are there in this world. So if we want to have the complete understanding of this world, then we have to go by the words of the Creator Himself. So then there comes the role of the scriptures, which tells us, that teaches us about who we are, what is the purpose of this world, how complex is this world, how to deal, how to be situated properly. All these things you find from the scripture. So by reading the absolute science of Vedic literatures and following the process of self-realization, just example of that, what we practice is the chanting of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. It has been practiced and proved in many universities. They have done it. This is called sound meditation. So they practice and they meditated, and they found out the result to be very much like people became more self-realized. More self-realized means more peaceful, more happy, and in their life practically they could see all these results. So by reading the literatures, now I'm not telling only about here only one literature. Whichever religion you may belong to, you can go and read those literatures. They give us the higher understanding of the self, about us in this world and the purpose of this world. Maybe it may little bit it may vary from here and there, but mostly you'll find that it talks about the real self. So I mean to say, these literatures and these practices, spiritual practices. Now, whichever religion you may be from, you may go through and practice those practices. When you will do that, then gradually we'll start developing this self-realization. Self-realization means situated in our original identity, in our proper identity. And that point of time, we will not be deluded by the false identities. And this is how we can be properly situated. So change the perspective. Once you will change the perspective for this world by this knowledge derived from these literatures, then you will see this world completely different. Let me give you here another example. Just like if you write a C program or any language, if you write a program in, so if I take that program in front of a person who is belonging from literature's background, literary background, suppose he's a very good in English literatures and all that. So when he will read that this computer program, what he will say, see, there is something wrong here. Print F. This is not proper. It should be print only. Why this is F? So this is how he will read your program, and he will say, why you have written English in this way? This is not proper. Please don't write like this. Scan F. What is F? So this is how he will read your computer program. He will not have a proper perspective of how to see that C program. But the same C program, if you take in front of a person who is from a computer background, he'll immediately see that program and make out, oh, these are the errors, this is the output, this is how, why we are using this, why we are using this. So this is how easily he can make out what this is. So similarly, this world is same for everyone. This is same for me, you, and everyone. This is same. But what is different? The knowledge which we have. The knowledge which I have, I'll see this world with that knowledge. You will see this world with that knowledge which you have with yourself. So this is how we see this same world with the different knowledge. If we do not have the proper knowledge, if we see this world with different vision, not a proper vision, then we may end up in committing problems. So that is the contribution of these literatures. When these literatures opens up our eyes, it is said that Om Agyana Timirandasya Jnanam Jana Salakaya. Agyana Timirandasya means our eyes are at present in ignorance. When we gain the knowledge from these literatures, our eyes are opened, and then we start seeing this world with a proper perception. And when we have a proper perception of this world, then we will not end up committing mistakes. So this is another advantage, that we'll have a complete different perspective altogether. I'll quote here few. I'm going to end in a few minutes. Before that, I'll quote some of the references from the scientists and all that who has praised the knowledge of these literatures. Here is one British mathematician. He says, the vastest knowledge of today cannot transcend the buddhi of the rishis in ancient India, and science in its most advanced stage now is closer to Vedanta than ever before. Professor Max Muller, he says, in the history of the world, the Vedas fill a gap which no literary work in any other language could fill. I maintain that to everybody who cares for himself, for his ancestors, for its intellectual development, a study of Vedic literatures is indeed indispensable. Next, Henry David Thoreau, he says, in the morning I bathe my intellect in the cosmogonal philosophy. Cosmogonal philosophy, he has used this word. What does this mean? The bigger picture of this world. What picture we have of this world is, ये कॉलेज है, ये मेरा घर है, ये मेरा कंट्री है, ये मेरा स्टेट है, ये मेरा सिटी है, ये मेरा this much. We think of this much only. We don't ask about the bigger picture of this world. So here is telling that he bathed his intellect in the cosmogonal philosophy of the Bhagavad Gita, in comparison with which our modern world and its literature seems puny. Just see how he is comparing this knowledge. So this is how we see all the scientists and all the literature, the intellectual class of people, they have recognized the importance of these things in their life, that how much external objects we may possess with us, that is not important. Most important is that how much we are aware of our own self, and how much we are controlled of our own self. And when we are situated in that situation, then we can be actually happy and peaceful. With that, I'll end here my session. If anybody has any question, you may please ask your question.
Namaste, Guruji.
Yes.
I have a question. The Bhagavad Gita is extraordinary epic.
Yes, please. Hello. Hello. Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Yes, please ask your question.
Hello.
Yes, please.
Uh, Please ask the question. I think Narahari Prabhu is waiting. You can I read it out? Some questions.
Yes, please.
Mr. Samir Jain wants to know what is the psychology and ways to deal with it self effectively in work.
Hmm. Okay. I think it is in chat box. What is psychology and ways to deal it with self effectively in work life balance? Yes. So, so psychology means dealing with the just like we self are this body also. In Bhagavad Gita, it is told that there are five gross elements, and they are earth, water, fire, air, and ether. And above them, there are subtle elements. The subtle elements are mind, intelligence, and ego. So these three elements, mind, intelligence, and ego, they are the subtle elements, and the earth, water, fire, air, and ether, they are the gross elements. So the gross elements are the one with which we can deal. हम एक दूसरे को देख सकते हैं, हम perceive कर सकते हैं. But mind, intelligence, and ego, generally we cannot see of some, we cannot see कि आपके अंदर mind में क्या चल रहा है,
So many
intelligence
small
क्या है.
disturbings. I'm not able to hear anything. Actually, I asked the question. Is it clear, Swami, my question?
Actually,
हाँ,
Dr. Mohan is answering another question, so he will
Oh,
be taking next.
okay, okay. Oh, thank you, thank you. Thank
So I was studying that there are five gross elements and three subtle elements. So these three subtle elements, mind, intelligence, and ego, they you can say them as a part of psychology. So mind, intelligence, and ego, mind deals with sankalpa and vikalp. Sankalpa and vikalp means you determine something, but then next moment you have some options. No, let me go for that also. Then you choose that another one, then again you get some other option, so you want to go for that. Mind means flickering always. Just like you decided today I'll study, but you'll get another option, then why don't you go for a movie? So that's how it keeps on giving the options. So mind is flickering always. So that's the first mind, and then second is intelligence. Intelligence is what? It will judge your ideas which are generated by the mind. So if your intelligence is proper, it will reject or accept the ideas given by the mind. Now the third thing is ego. Ego is above even mind and intelligence also. Just like sometimes you might have observed, because I am the director, or if I'm too much into the identity of a director, if I'm in the ego of being a director, even though if I find that something is, my mind is also telling yes you should do that, my intelligence is also telling yes you should do that, but because of my ego I will not do that. So this is how mind, intelligence, and ego they works. So these mind and intelligence and ego, they can be part of psychology of a person, and you can say the higher self. So one self is this body, another higher self is mind, intelligence, and ego, and beyond that also there is another self, that is spirit, soul. So these are the various levels of self. So it depends upon you where you want to be in the self realization. Somebody who is only concerned about his external identities, somebody is concerned about his bodily identity, somebody is on the level of mental, somebody is an intellectual, or somebody is an ego level. So like that various people are on the various self identities. So This is how we can understand that these are part of the psychology. Next question I'll read here, or should I take from Mohanji?
Yeah, yes, sir. Yes, Guruji. See, my question somehow interrupted some network issue. My question is, Lord Krishna gave the Bhagavad Gita to Arjuna.
Hmm.
You are hearing me, sir? Hello?
Yes, yes.
Instead of Arjuna, he would have given to Duryodhana, the war might have been not at all exist. Question number one. Number two, Krishna says for any happiness or the sadness, you should be in a state of calmness. But how to go to calmness, irrespective of the happiness or the sadness, is not able to understood anywhere or given in anywhere in Bhagavad Gita. Please highlight about this one, Guruji.
Hmm. So your first question is that why Lord Krishna spoke Bhagavad Gita to Arjuna? Instead, he could have spoken to Duryodhana or like that.
It
So,
stopped the war.
so in Bhagavad Gita itself, Krishna tells that Bhakto asi me sakha cheti. And one more thing he uses here, there anusuyava. Anusuya means non-envious. Somebody who is non-envious, to that person, if you give knowledge, that person will listen to you. But if a person is envious to you, and if you want to tell him some information, he will not be in a mood of accepting. So somebody who is in a mood of accepting and who wants to understand, that is the right candidate, or you can say student. Even in your classrooms you might have experienced this, that if the students are not interested to receive the information, you yourself also would not be interested in giving that information to them. So first quality for a student is to be humble and in an accepting mood. So when Arjuna, in comparison to Duryodhana and all that, though Krishna personally went to Duryodhana and all to convince them and to satisfy them for a peace proposal, also he went, he tried everything. But instead of all that efforts, he did not take it in a right way. And Arjuna is the right candidate because he is humble also, he is in accepting mood also. So all these qualities, bhakto asi me sakha cheti, that because he is a devotee and is a good friend in a receiving mood, that's why he is speaking to Arjuna. So this is the qualities which are mentioned in the Bhagavad Gita, how the student should approach the master, spiritual master. When a student approaches in the right attitude, then the master would be comfortable to give the information to the student. Now the second question, how to maintain calmness in when we are disturbed or we are happy. In Bhagavad Gita, Krishna has spoken so widely about this subject matter. He has told at many points that if a person practices this spiritual life, he'll gradually uplift himself and he'll become free from this duality of happiness and distress. So this is not simply a matter of knowledge. One has to practice spirituality. When he'll practice in a day-to-day life, then gradually he can experience this. Simply because he has heard some information, some knowledge, and he may think that I'll be free from this. No, it's not possible like that. Simply knowledge will not work. Along with that requires the practice also. So when we do that, both the things, then we will be properly situated and we'll be free from the duality of distress and happiness.
You mean to say you have to go into the meditation more and more and internal understanding of the self. Is it
Right.
the Guruji?
Right. So there are various processes mentioned for various ages. So particularly for this age, it is told in a Srimad Bhagavatam Puran, it is told by Parikshit Maharaj, Sukdev Goswami, Kalau tad Hari Kirtanad. It is told that in this particular age, just by chanting the holy name of the Lord, we can develop that. When we start doing the sound meditation, when we chant the mantra, then we can gradually uplift our consciousness and we can be properly situated. So we have to practice this meditation, sound meditation.
Okay, Guruji. Thank you very much.
So the next question here is from Gauri Rao. Thank you for making us aware of false identities. I understand that faith is conviction of things as we have not seen, but can it be assurance for outcomes we hope for? Yes. So Gauri Rao, your question is very nice actually, कि हमने जो फेथ के बेसिस पे जो रिसीव किया है उसका आउटकम सही होगा कि नहीं, और हाउ वी कैन बी श्योर ऑफ दैट. Actually, this world is like that only. You can never be sure of what is the outcome. As I told you the example, when you enter in the college, You're not sure of the outcome, what will happen. Maybe you will pass or you may not be able to pass. So outcomes, every moment a person has to take the risk. So risk is always involved. Just like if you have to go on the road, if you have to drive a car, you'll have to take the risk. It's not that simply, just like if I don't want to take a risk, and if I simply want to sit in the home, and if I want to sit into the building also, when I'm sitting in the building, I have to have faith on the building also, that this building will not collapse. If I want this earth planet, I have to have faith on this earth planet also, that there will be no earthquake. Or in the city where I'm, there will be no earthquake. So this is how, again, I have to have faith on that also. So risk a person has to take, but this risk should be calculated risk. Calculated means we should properly, based on at least whatever knowledge you have till now with you today, we should not be influenced by emotions. You should not be taking the decision. Your decisions should not be influenced by emotions. Your decisions should be influenced by yourself, by yourself, or you can say self-realization, not by some emotions. खुशी खुशी में कोई वादा कर दिया और फिर बाद में हम कर नहीं पाए. That is not what we should do. और ज्यादा दुखी 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 में हमने ऐसा डिसीजन ले लिया कि वो बाद में प्रॉब्लम बन गया सबके लिए. So our decisions should not be influenced by some external identities or some emotions. The decisions should be taken by us in full consciousness of our own self. So in this way, we can take the calculated risk and we can go forward. The next question is, what is difference between happiness and bliss? I think they are almost equal only. Happiness, you can say, if I to just speak, this happiness is generally understood to be the sensual happiness. Just like my tongue, if it is getting some rasgulla, that is happiness. Generally in this world, happiness is considered like that. And bliss, generally people consider it to be on some mental platform or intellectual platform. So that's what I have understood about these things. Okay. If there is any other question, you may please ask. Should we always control our anger? Yes. Sometimes let it come out also, right? So when to be angry is not a problem. The problem is we lose ourselves while being angry. Because the anger can be used, as I told you, for the right purposes also. So you should not lose control of yourself when becoming angry. Anger is justified when it is for the right cause and you are in control of yourself completely. That point, it is justified. But anger, when it takes over you completely, you lose control of yourself. That point, the anger is not justified. So that kind of anger we should not have. Anything you can use, humility also you can use in the same manner, or tolerance, whatever these traits we can use, but we should not lose control of our own self. By being in this understanding, we can always use them. How do we manage research activities without stress? You are a PhD scholar, I think, under some teacher here. So that that you can see. The first thing is what? We should always go and discuss with the person with whom we are dealing with. Maybe while your research activities, you may be dealing with some faculty. So you should discuss with them all ways and means. Not with the mood of finding some faults or to accuse him or like that. With very much, as I told you, if you are completely in control of yourself, in a very open manner, in a very rational manner, you will ask them or you will reveal to them, sir, see, this is the problem. This is the time I have. This is the time when I have to deal with them. This is the time when I have to do like this. So if you explain like that, if the problem is resolved by two persons speaking with each other, that is the best way of solving the problem. Not that now the next thing may be you may go to the higher authorities also in the right channel. That is also a way. But the first thing is, if you can discuss with that person properly the cause of stress, find out the causes, where the root is of the problem, by which these problems are arising, and then try to resolve those roots by discussing. See, we are human beings. We are human beings, and every day a person changes. So today, if we should not create a perception for a person कि वो तो ऐसा ही है, उससे जब भी बात करूंगा वो ऐसा ही बोलेगा. No, we should have an open idea of a person that कि ठीक है, आज मैं जाके fresh way में उनसे बात करता हूँ. Let me explain in a fresh way, and he may understand. So how much we can solve the problems at the level of personal level, that is the best thing we can do. And then there are some other ways also we can take. Then next is from Namaste Guruji. In society, those who are not follow the human values or attain the good positions means they got good physical facilities. Okay, those who follow the human values not able to attain good position. How we can see this? Yes. See, in this today's class, we have only discussed about our self-management. But there are series of lectures where we can take up all these things and we can understand why good thing happens to the bad people and bad thing happens to good people. So all these things, what are the causes of them? We have a complete presentation on that is called law of karma. And just to brief here you the answer, what could be the answer is, just like how we act today, we are going to get the result tomorrow. So tomorrow if somebody comes and says, how you got this? So I may not know that how I acted in my previous day, but that is the result today I'm getting because of the previous day's activity. So this is how whatever we are getting today, a person who is today in a good position, maybe because of his good karmas or good activities he has performed in his past life. Similarly, we may be suffering bad results today, though today we are carrying good values. The consequences may be because of our past activities performed in the past life. So this is how the law of karma, it acts. But it is sure that if today they are not following the human values properly, they are sure to receive the consequences again as a bad result in their future life. So we should be always assured of this fact that supreme justice is always meted out. हमेशा कभी भी इनजस्टिस नहीं होगा लॉ ऑफ नेचर में. हमारे लॉ में कुछ मिस्टेक हो सकती है, मे बी हमारे लॉ में कभी कभी कुछ इवन चोरी करता है लेकिन फिर भी कुछ इन्फ्लुएंस उसका वो करवा के छूट गया, या कुछ उसने क्राइम किया तो भी छूट गया. So this is how it may possible in human beings dealings, in the laws created by human beings. But the laws which are created by the nature, never ever it happened that they did not make justice. It never happened. Just like you see the atom, just you observe the atom, the electrons weight, protons weight, their speed, everything you see, it never changes with time. It never changed actually. The same weight, we have learned from our childhood, it was same only. The previous scientists also, they have also worked there, they also use the same values. Today also we are also using the same values. Similarly, this earth is rotating at the same speed. Today also it is rotating at the same speed. 100 years back also it was rotating at the same speed. So the laws of nature are very strict. They are very strict. The law of gravitational force is very strict. Irrespective of person's involvement, it will always meet. Whatever may be there, it will always meet. So this is how laws of nature are very strict. So if something we find that वो अच्छा नहीं है फिर भी उसके साथ बुरा हो रहा है, या वो बुरा है उसके साथ अच्छा हो रहा है, so all these things they will be according to the laws of karma. So we should have full assurance on laws of karma. Can you quote some methodology for stress management? Yes, please. I'll mention here the sound meditation. Just I'll tell you how you can do it. We do Hare Krishna Maha Mantra sound meditation, and how we do it, we chant 108 times Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, and we meditate, we chant, and you can say listen the sound. So how we do? Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So I chant it and I hear it. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So I chant and hear, chant and hear, chant and hear. That's all. So 108 times when we chant, this is considered one mala, and based on your time, how much your time permits, you can chant the number of rounds, and then you yourself can experience the result of this. And this has been studied in a university. I forgot the names of those universities in USA also, and in India also. Uh, I think in IIT Indore also there was one experiment on this Hare Krishna Mahamantra sound meditation. So all where it has been proved that by chanting this, gradually we become free from all these problems of our life. So you can also start this chanting, and let me share with you all my personal contact number, and you can always WhatsApp me on this number, and you can always discuss all these issues which we may be going through, and we'll try to find out some solution. And you practice it and give me the feedback and understand further, and then we can have a better situation in your life. I'll try to help you out in these manners. So you can write down my number, and these are my WhatsApp number also, so you can always contact me on that. Okay, next is, please tell us how we should generate ethics in society. Yes, education is the most important factor in that. Education, we have to educate people. If you'll educate people, just like nobody has become rogue or thieves simply by themselves. Somehow they got associated with some wrong people. Somehow they've read something wrong. Somehow they've seen some wrong movies. Somehow they've seen something wrong in their life, and because of that influence, today they have become rogues and thieves. So similarly, if you want to change them, you have to give them education. If you give them proper education, by that education they will change. So the one line answer for this is education. And as being you all are mostly professors in your college, educate the children, educate the students whom you're teaching them in all these principles. And see, spirituality is not a subject matter of generally we think it's some secondary, it's not important. It's not like that. It is the most important priority of the life. Why I'm telling most important is because the external knowledge, technical knowledge you may have, but if your character is not proper, then you may end up committing something wrong with that same technical knowledge. So that technical knowledge, yes, you have to have the technical knowledge also to deal with the world, but before that your character should be proper. If your character is not proper, then what is the use of all the technical knowledge you have with yourself? So the first priority should be is the spiritual knowledge for the person to have. If he has that, then he can act properly in this world. So it is all of your duty as a professors, you're teaching students, you're educating students. Please, in free times or whenever you meet students, discuss with them, or sometimes we can also come to your institute. Generally when we come, we are also speaking to them. So we should, as an educator in the society, should try to educate them, and this is the way how we can deal. How to control stress management? As we have told you, the knowledge and practice, and there is a very complete subject matter, this stress management. So we can have a complete session altogether if all the faculties want. So we can discuss on that. But for as of now, whatever I have discussed in this today's class, if you start implementing this also, I am sure that you will be free from most of the stress which you may be going through. If you have any YouTube channel or any other sources to contact you, it would be yes, I have given the contact, so you can please contact with me always. What we should do when we have negative thoughts in mind? May I ask how much time is left with us? We can continue. Okay, let me answer this question meanwhile. What we should do when we have negative thoughts in mind? Yes. See, I'll give you some practical things to do. One thing I have already told you, which I have discussed in the class today. which you can gradually develop, but in one day it may not be possible. So what you can do practically at the instant when it happens to you? First of all, you should not be alone. You should come out from, if you are in a situation where you are completely alone, एक रूम के अंदर अकेले हैं आप, कोई भी नहीं है आपके साथ में, you should coming up, you should not be in that situation. First of all, जब भी आप नेगेटिव थॉट्स के थ्रू जा रहे हैं, you should try to be with other persons, and other persons also you should choose some right persons who are inspiring for you, who are able to give you some better information, or who can help you out. So such persons you should go and sit with them, that's all. Even if you may not discuss with them something, just sit with them and just have a good discussion, that's all. So this is how the first thing you should always do is come out of seclusion. You should be with some person. Second thing, if you have some spiritual books, open up that and start reading. Maybe it is difficult because you are alone and it may be difficult. So you can ask that person whom you are faith, who has like who is good to you. You can ask him and sit with you and read those things. You should start reading that, and you can practice some sound meditation, that which I have told you. So this is how, these are practical things you can do at that time when you are going through these negative thoughts. So this is how association is the most important thing. By association, we develop our understandings. By association, we develop positive thoughts. By association, we develop negative thoughts. So association is the first thing you should do always when you are going through negative thoughts. Just grab some person who is inspiring to you and just sit with him, read with him. In this way, you can at least come out from the situation for that time at least. And then gradually, for a gradual process, what you should do, that what we have discussed in today's presentation. What we should do when we have, okay, we are positive, but now should we take care that others' negative energy should not affect us? Yes, we should always be careful. We should prepare ourselves. It is not that only when the war will happen, then we will start our training. No, we should be well prepared. That's why I told you, the knowledge of these literatures, they give us the right perception of this world. Why that perception is required? So that when we face that situation in our life tomorrow, we are ready for that. We are prepared. Our consciousness is prepared.
I mean, because of class.
So when we are prepared, then we can easily face those challenges. So we should be well prepared for all these things. We should not wait that when I will be in negative thoughts, then I will start all these things. We should be well prepared. Yes, someone was asking something.
It's maybe wrong connection.
Okay. Is there any other question, or we will end up here? Parikshit ji? Okay. Thank you very much for being. Sorry, you are not audible.
Yeah, thank you, Guruji. Very nice session. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.